Welcome to GED Examination Center, where your success is our priority. Comma separating a verb and its object. Don't separate a transitive verb from its direct object with a comma. Here are some examples. I'm glad I trained, Charlie not to beg for scraps. This is incorrect. The correct way is, I'm glad I trained Charlie not to beg for scraps. Example 2. Mary said, she likes chocolate. This is incorrect. The right way is, Mary said she likes chocolate. Comma with non-restrictive clause. A non-restrictive clause offers extra information about something you have mentioned in a sentence, but the information isn't essential to identify the thing you're talking about. Non-restrictive clauses are usually introduced by which or who and should be set off by commas. For example, Posey's Cafe, which Chester recommended, is a fantastic restaurant. The clause which Chester recommended is non-restrictive because Posey's Cafe is already specific. Identifying it as the restaurant recommended by Chester doesn't narrow it down any further. Example 2. My wife, whom I love dearly, is a brilliant physicist. The clause whom I love dearly is non-restrictive because you could remove it and it would still be clear that you're talking about the same person. My wife is already specific. Comma with restrictive clauses. A restrictive clause adds necessary information about something you have mentioned in a sentence. Restrictive clauses are often introduced by that or who and should never be set off by commas. Here are some examples. The cafe, that Chester recommended, is a fantastic restaurant. This example is incorrect. The correct way is, the cafe that Chester recommended is a fantastic restaurant. The clause that Chester recommended is essential information in the sentence above. If you removed it, there would be no way to tell which restaurant you were talking about. Comma between correlative conjunctions. Correlative conjunctions are conjunctions that come in pairs, such as either or, neither nor, and not only but also, and connect words or phrases in a sentence to form a complete thought. Typically, commas are unnecessary with correlative conjunctions. Here are some examples. Either the blue shirt, or the red sweater will look good with your jeans. This is an incorrect example. The correct way is, either the blue shirt or the red sweater will look good with your jeans. Example 2. You could wear a pashmina not only for warmth, but also for fashion. This is incorrect. The correct way is, you can wear a pashmina not only for warmth but also for fashion. Comma between direct quote and attributive tag. An attributive tag is a phrase like he said or she claimed that identifies the speaker of a quote or piece of dialogue. Attributive tags can come before, after, or even in the middle of a quote. Use commas to separate attributive tags from quotations. Here are some examples. The professor remarked, "How attentive you have been today." Once you know the solution, Tiffany said, the whole problem seems very simple. You have ice cream on your nose, my friend snickered. When you leave the house, my mother yelled, "Don't slam the door." If a quotation before an attributive tag ends in a question mark or exclamation point, however, there's no need for a comma. Take a look. You have a spider on your nose, my friend yelled. You have a spider on your nose, my friend yelled. Where did that spider come from, I asked. Where did that spider come from, I asked. Comma inside quotation marks. In American English, commas always go before closing quotation marks. Here are some examples. Pass me that thesaurus, said Matthew. We're going down to the soup kitchen to help serve dinner, her mother called. In British English, however, unquoted punctuation typically follows the quotation marks. If you are writing for a British audience, put the comma after the closing quotation mark. Furthermore, British English tends to use single quotes rather than double quotation marks. Comma before parenthesis. Parentheses are used to give additional information to the reader, information that would disrupt the flow of the sentence if written as a non-restrictive clause. Commas may be placed after the closing parenthesis, but not before either the opening or the closing parenthesis. If the sentence would not require any commas, if the parenthetical statement were removed, the sentence would not have any commas when the parentheses are added. Take a look. After opening the new cookie tin, comma, Chester had a hard time replacing the lid. After opening the new cookie tin, parentheses, and eating several of the cookies, close parentheses, comma, Chester had a hard time replacing the lid. Now compare this to the incorrect statements. Comma between an article and noun. Don't use a comma between an article and a noun. Here's an incorrect example. The company managers accidentally scheduled the, comma, weekly meeting for Saturday, period. The correct way is, the company managers accidentally scheduled the weekly meeting for Saturday, period. When speaking, we often pause while we think of the next word we want to say. In writing, though, there's usually no reason to add this pause. If you're writing dialogue and you specifically want to convey a pause here while someone is thinking, use an ellipses, a ... For example, I'll have an ... apple. Comma with as well as. The phrase as well as usually doesn't require commas unless it's part of a non-restrictive clause. Here are some examples. Please proofread for grammatical mistakes as well as spelling, full stop. Spelling mistakes, comma, as well as grammatical errors, comma, are distracting to readers, period. Comma with such as. The phrase such as requires commas if it introduces a non-restrictive clause. For example, coniferous trees, comma, such as pine and spruce, comma, do not drop their needles in the winter, period. If such as introduces a restrictive clause, omit the commas. For example, trees such as pine and spruce do not drop their needles in the winter. Comma before to. Using a comma before to is optional. Here's a correct example. I like bananas too, period. I too like bananas, period. A comma simply adds emphasis. Here's a correct example. I like bananas, comma, too. I, comma, too, comma, like bananas,